The Game of Thrones show was quite invested in the subplot of the Harpy for Daenerys in Meereen. In the show, the Sons don't seem to have a Harpy running this assassin group. Their main motivation is to oppose Dany's anti-slavery agenda, and Ian McElhenney Varys finds out that they are being funded by the newly reinstated slave masters of Astapor, Yunkai, with help from the city of Atlantis, a plotline that doesn't seem to go anywhere interesting, and then the Sons of the Harpy get by Daario at the gates of Meereen near the end of season 6. In the books, their motivation has more to do with Meereenese politics itself, and is more nuanced and vicious than in the show. They begin much like the show's plotline does, with killing freedmen in Meereen streets, and gaining Dany's attention on a plot level when they kill Stalwart Shield in the books, White Rat in the show, one of Dany's Unsullied in a brothel. In the book, it's fair to say it was slightly overdone compared to the show. 6 or more, said Sir Barristan. From the look of his wounds, they swarmed him from all sides. He was found with an empty scabbard. It may be that he wounded some of his attackers. Dany said a silent prayer, that somewhere one of the Harpy's sons was dying even now, clutching at his belly and writhing in pain. Why did they cut open his cheeks like that? Gracious Queen, said Grey Worm, his killers had forced the genitals of a goat down the throat of your servant Stalwart Shield. This one removed them before bringing him here. They could not feed him his own genitals. The Astapori left him neither root nor stem. The sons grow bolder, Dany observed. This begins a quid pro quo style shadow war that continues through Dany's stay in Meereen, and well after her and Drogon's rather traumatic exit from the city. Dany tries quite a few things to vanquish the Sons of the Harpy, including increasing the reward for information concerning Sons of the Harpy, setting up a new Meereenese city watch made up of Meereenese called the Brazen Beasts, her own version of the King's Landing Gold Cloaks, and the Sons of the Harpy reply by killing more Unsullied and other men she had freed before and after her coming to Meereen. In response to the reward increase, the Sons offer their own reward for anyone who kills Daenerys. Dany, being advised by the people around her that the Sons are actually noblemen who are upset about her ending slavery and upsetting Meereen's status quo, starts claiming the children from the noble families of Meereen, as she is quite familiar with Westerosi culture of hostage-taking to promote peace between conflicting parties. But when the time comes, she's reluctant to kill any of these hostages because she's grown fond of them. Finally, she marries Hizdahr Zolorak, in exchange for a promise that he, himself a Meereenese noble, will stop the killing for 90 days. If he does that, they marry. He does that. Immediately, the head of the Brazen Beasts, Skahaz Mokandak, is suspicious and concludes that Hizdahr is the Harpy. The Sons of the Harpy have put down their knives, but why? Because the noble Hizdahr asked sweetly? He is one of them, I tell you. That's why they obey him. He may well be the Harpy. I love Skahaz. He's so violent and insane. Well, Dany is not so sure. She is not so sure that there is a Harpy anymore. Mostly because the Sons of the Harpy that the Brazen Beasts did manage to capture alive yielded too many names. And she seems to go against the idea of there being a Dark Lord amongst her enemies. George is playing with us, of course. It would make sense that a man who doesn't believe in the concept of a Dark Lord wouldn't include one among Dany's enemies in her Essos arc. And Dany is right, in a sense. Her enemies are legion, but not these enemies. In Meereen and in Essos, her enemies generally always have a Dark Lord, so to say. Pyat Pree, who is not the leader of the Undying, is still definitely the most plot important when it comes to them, as he is the link between Dany and that storyline. Zero Zohan Daxos, no, he is not dead or imprisoned in the books, yet, was sent as an emissary from Karth's slaver class to force her to abandon Essos to slavery, failing which, he mobilizes Karth against Dany. Yunkai has reorganized itself promptly back into a slave city, post Dany's departure, and are now at Meereen's gates under command of Yirkaz Zoyanzak. The Windblown, a sellsword company, has joined the slaver alliance of Karth, Yunkai, Tolos, Mentaris and others, from Volantis outside Meereen's gates under their Dark Lord, the Tattered Prince, who wants Pentos, something Dany has been reluctant to give him due to the affection and debt she felt towards Illyrio Mopatis. The Second Sons, another sellsword company which has betrayed Dany and joined the Slavers, is also fighting under their Dark Lord, the Dragon Daddy favorite Brown Ben Plum. So the anti-Dark Lord concept probably doesn't apply here. The Sons of the Harpy probably do have a Harpy at their head. The common suspect, as Kahaz and Barristan says, is Hizdahr. This is almost common sense, as Kahaz Shafepate says Hizdahr knew how to stop the killings. Right before her fiery departure, Dany was about to be poisoned by some of the locusts Hizdahr was offering her. She only survives because Strong Belwas, the absolute beast, ate them unknowingly. He survived the poisoning because he's awesome and nothing this puny will ever kill him. The Shafepate captures Hizdahr's confectioner, who poisoned the locusts under duress and fear of his own daughter's life. He confers with Barristan, and suspicions grow in the old Kingsguard's mind about Hizdahr. It seems obvious. He poisoned her, wanted to claim her rule, kill Dany's dragons, and reinstate slavery back in Meereen. He could well be the Harpy. This does make sense. Why would the Sons of the Harpy stop their killing simply because Dany marries Hizdahr? And why did they begin again when Dany left Meereen and her marriage behind? He has to be in league with them. But I think that's the furthest we can take that assumption. The Sons of the Harpy are already widely known to be agents of Meereenese noblemen, and Hizdahr is a Meereenese noble, sure, but not the only noble. Plus, Hizdahr himself doesn't seem to care whether slavery is in Meereen or not in Meereen. He tells Dany, "Custom and caution had an iron grip upon us, till you awakened us with fire and blood. A new time has come, and new things are possible." Not exactly pro-tradition and slavery here. He is lying, of course. He does keep a bed slave in his chamber after Dany is gone. It is entirely possible that this is an elaborate plan of the Harpy to marry Dany and secretly work behind her to kill her dragons, poison her, and take over, reinstating Meereen's glory days of slavery once more. And also, story-wise, it seems to make sense. George could be hiding his master plan behind his much simpler request of reopening Meereen's slave fighting pits, a culture which Dany found barbaric and therefore shut down, so he could subvert us with Hizdahr's secret plan later. But Hizdahr is not exactly a man of master plans. He's actually kind of a coward. He only keeps the bed slave after Dany has already left Meereen. His solo appearance at court sans Dany after her departure from Meereen makes his temperament clear. Granted, a severed head is dropped in front of him at court, and that would probably make anyone uneasy, but notice how Barristan characterizes King Hizdahr at this moment. Sir Barristan glanced towards the throne. He had served so many kings, he could not help but imagine how they might have reacted to this provocation. Aerys would have flinched away in horror, likely cutting himself on the barbs of the Iron Throne, then shrieked at his swordsman to cut the Yunkishman to pieces. Robert would have shouted for his hammer to repay Bloodbeard in kind. Even Jaehaerys, reckoned weak by many, would have ordered the arrest of Bloodbeard and the Yunkish slavers. Hizdahr sat frozen, a man transfixed. "This," King Hizdahr said at last, "this is not... We are not pleased. This... What is the meaning of this... Barristan continues to characterize him like this through most of his presence at court. Hizdahr seems petrified at the sight of violence, and escapes the court as fast as he can. Hardly the makings of a genius, bloodthirsty head of a vicious band of shadow killers who seem to compete amongst each other on how gruesomely they can kill people. I have no doubt that Hizdahr is definitely allied with the Harpies, and know them well enough. Unlike the show, where he did stop the killings in the books. But I do not believe he has what it takes to be the Harpy. To find the Harpy, we have to find the one who brought his proposal of marriage to Dany in the first place. These are grievous times, your radiance. Might I presume to offer you my counsel? You know how much I value your wisdom. Then heed me now, and marry. Ah, Dany had been expecting this. Oft times I've heard you say that you are only a young girl. To look at you, you still seem half a child, too young and frail to face such trials by yourself. You need a king beside you to help you bear these burdens. Dany speared a chunk of lamb, took a bite from it, chewed slowly. Tell me, can this king puff his cheeks up and blow Zara's galleys back to Karth? Can he clap his hands and break the siege of Astapor? Can he put food in the bellies of my children and bring peace back to my streets? Can you? The Green Grace asked. A king is not a god, but there is much that a strong man might do. When my people look at you, they see a conqueror from across the seas come to murder us and make slaves of our children. A king could change that. A high-born king of pure Giscari blood could reconcile the city to your rule. Elsewise, I fear, your reign must end as it began, in blood and fire. Dany pushed her food about her plate. And who would the gods of Gis have me take as my king and consort? Hizdahr Zolorak, Galaza Galeri said firmly. Galaza Galeri is the Green Grace of the Temple of Graces, the chief place of worship among the Meereenese. She's not in the TV show, but in the books. She's the leader of the temple and is one of Dany's most trusted advisors in Meereen. She seems frail but strong, and is a consistent champion of peace to Dany at a time of war. The Green Grace is very concerned that Dany maintain the peace of Hizdahr, and that it be maintained even after Dany has left Meereen on Dragonback. She's the one who persuades Dany to marry Hizdahr. Her very first line when we meet her is advice for Dany to bind herself to dresses and traditions of Meereen. She says, "The mother of dragons must don the tokar or be forever hated. In the wools of Westeros, or a gown of Mirish lace, your radiance shall forever remain a stranger amongst us, a grotesque outlander, a barbarian conqueror. Meereen's queen must be a lady of Gis." Brown Ben Plum, the captain of the Second Sons, had put it more succinctly. "Man wants to be the king of the rabbits? He best wear a pair of floppy ears." Dany takes this advice to heart. So much so that we see her referring to the concept of wearing a pair of floppy ears as a metaphor for trying to blend in with the Meereenese by adapting their cultural signifiers so she could rule them better throughout the entire book. The Green Grace also requests that Dany follow the proper rules of Meereen to marry Hizdahr instead of her own Westerosi rites. The gods of Gis would deem it no true union. In the eyes of the city, you would be the noble Hizdahr's concubine, not his lawful wedded wife. Your children would be bastards. Your worship must marry Hizdahr in the Temple of the Graces, with all the nobility of Meereen on hand to bear witness to your union. If you go through Dany's A Dance with Dragon chapters, you would notice that every single one of the Green Grace's advice seems to be in favor of Meereenese nobility without outright antagonizing Dany and her followers. Upon taking over Meereen, Dany dismantled the slave system and promptly perched on top of the Great Pyramid and declared herself queen, but did not take up any of Meereenese customs, and actively refused to others the return of many customs she considered barbaric, Hizdahr's fighting pits being a key example. The Green Grace gently undoes all of this. She requests Dany to don the floppy ears. She brings the marriage proposal of Hizdahr to Dany. She makes sure throughout the book that Dany is properly assimilated into Meereenese culture. And before the end of the book, of course, she would request that Viserion and Rhaegal be killed. She is the Harpy. Remember, the Harpy is above all the representation of older Meereenese culture, a return to tradition, if you will, in the face of the onslaught of progress brought to Meereen in the shape of battering rams, turtles, and violence, and Dany's Westerosi customs like a distaste for Assassí slavery. The Harpy is also a female religious figure, perfectly represented by a priestess like the Green Grace, who is the protector of Meereen's Harpy class, so to speak. She's gentler than Dany's most violent counselors like the Shavepate, but not a coward like Reznak Moresnak or Hizdahr. Barristan notes that the Green Grace is a strong woman, And in the same conversation, he almost guesses the truth when the Green Grace tries to argue that Hizdahr has nothing to do with the poisoned locusts. But Barristan, being Barristan of course, doesn't realize how close to the truth he is. The Green Grace has been watching Dany's treatment of the hostages she took. She notices that Dany is not strong enough to kill these children and immediately seizes on this opportunity. She has freedmen killed, freedmen who were once the slaves of Green Grace's cousin, Hizdahr. Hizdahr had come to Dany to demand a portion of earnings from the new loom business that these freedmen had opened after Dany had freed them, because these men had learned how to weave when they were his slaves. Dany denies this to Hizdahr and asks him to buy a new loom for the girls instead, for the crime of forgetting the name of the slave who taught these young, now freed slaves the craft of weaving. Later, when the Green Grace comes to Dany for the marriage pact, this conversation happens. Galeza Galere sipped her wine, but her eyes did not leave Dany. The storms rage within the walls as well as without. More freedmen died last night, or so I've been told. 3. Saying it left a bitter taste in her mouth. The cowards broke in on some weavers, freed women who had done no harm to anyone. All they did was make beautiful things. I have a tapestry they gave me hanging over my bed. The sons of the Harpy broke their loom and raped them before slitting their throats. The Green Grace knows by this point that Dany won't harm the hostages, and so she's free to kill as many freedmen as she likes. This subtlety and habit of choosing her words carefully is what distinguishes her from Hizdahr. Barristan knows how shrewd she is, which is why he sends her to negotiate a hostage exchange among Meereen and the Slaver Alliance when war seems almost inevitable. The Green Grace also fits George's penchant of putting old ladies in positions of power, something which he has done with Olenna Tyrell, Lady Stoneheart, Barbary Dustin, and my favorite, the Widow of the Waterfront. He would definitely make the Green Grace the Harpy. It also makes sense if Hizdahr is her puppet, that she's telling Barristan to his face what he needs to do if he wants to stop the killings. To be honest, I love how much of a villain she is. She fits perfectly with other minor villains in the series like Big Walder, the killer of Little Walder, or Reek in Theon's Clash of Kings chapters when he was killing off Theon's men one by one. But that is a subject for another video.